Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk, this Tuesday edition of Focal Point on the American Family Radio Talk Network. If you want to weigh in on what we've been talking about in the program today, including the real war on women being the war on unborn women, mortality rate in India for girls 75% higher than it is for boys because Hinduism does not place the same value that Christianity does on the value, worth, and significance of the female. I mean, that's what we're taught in the scriptures. There are male and female, equal in value, equal in worth, different and complementary in role, but absolutely equal in value. We are co-heirs with women of the gracious gift of life. They don't get eternal life by going through their husbands or through other males. They have it in their own right because they stand as full equals before God. I want to weigh in on that, the real war on women being a war on unborn women. We've talked about, we talked toward the end of the first segment about the fact that 77% of evangelicals believe that we are living in the last times. I'd like to know what you think about that, if you agree with those 77% of evangelicals. Talking here with Peter LaBarbera of Americans for the Truth about homosexuality. Talked in the last segment about the CDC revealing that you have a lot of boys, males, between the ages of 13 and 24 who have been diagnosed with HIV, and 94 to 95% of the time, the mode of infection, the mode of transmission is having sex with other males. Homosexual conduct is risky, it's dangerous, it is lethal to human health. The CDC is funding organizations that promote the normalization of homosexuality to teenage males. That's not compassion, it is cruelty. Now, Peter, before I let you go, a couple of other quick things I want. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to add that, what most people don't realize because they just lead normal lives is the incredible promiscuity and reckless behavior that goes on in the gay male world. And so you have guys lying about their HIV status. You have hyper-promiscuity. There's a whole gay orgy scene. You have these online phone apps that allow men to find anonymous sex, like by GPS. And so these young men, they might go into this lifestyle with this idealized version of what homosexuality is in their mind, and then they quickly come in reality that there is a rampant promiscuity, and that contributes to the immense risk that this lifestyle has in store for these young men.
One illustration of that, Peter, I had a story that I went over last week where there was a man that's been arrested now in Missouri. He was diagnosed with HIV 10 years ago. He's homosexual, and he admitted that he has had at least 300 sexual partners in the last 10 years. So that's a minimum of 30 sexual partners every year. So again, it illustrates what you were saying. He's just one example of the fact that this kind of anonymous, random, promiscuous sexual activity is characteristic of those that are deeply involved in the homosexual community. Now, Peter, one other thing before I let you go, one of the contentions I've made frequently is America is going to have to choose. We have to choose between homosexuality and religious liberty because we cannot have both. Every time the homosexual agenda advances, religious liberty has to retreat. And by the way, if you want to call in the program, join the conversation, 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. And let's talk, Peter, for a moment about how the situation with Craig James and what's going on with the San Antonio City Council, how those two things illustrate this tension between the homosexual agenda and religious liberty.
Yeah, the Craig James story is another sad one. Here's a guy, he's a former football star. You've probably seen him on TV analyzing football games. And he gets a job with Fox Sports Southwest, I believe. He was going to be an analyst for college football games. And lo and behold, somebody resurrects a Texas Senate debate. This is the same race that Ted Cruz won, thank God. And in the debate, Craig James says, he's asked a question about gay marriage. He says that homosexuals, he had the audacity to say that homosexuals are responsible for their behavior. He believes it's a choice. Of course, everybody chooses their own behavior. And he said that homosexuals will have to answer to God one day for being involved in homosexual so-called marriage. And because of that tape, Fox let him go. And Brian, this ties in with what I've been saying about Fox News. You can't assume that Fox News is going to be even conservative or even neutral. I did a whole report on how Fox News, as opposed to Fox Sports, has an escalating pro-homosexual bias. Yeah. And so even Fox now is pro-gay.
Yeah, and we had Cliff Kincaid on to talk about that report. You were the one that did the research and wrote that paper talking about how Fox is really lurching now to the left on the homosexual agenda. And one example is replacing Sean Hannity at that prime 9 p.m. slot by Megyn Kelly, who has some pretty pronounced pro-homosexual leanings.
Absolutely. Megyn Kelly went off on, she just chastised Dr. Keith Blow because he had the audacity to say in a column that Chaz Bono, who used to be Chastity Bono, the cute kid of Sonny and Cher, now she thinks she's a man and she's actually had her healthy breasts removed. Dr. Blow said that's not a healthy role model for kids. And here Megyn Kelly accused him of that old liberal charge. She said, you're adding to the hate. And can you imagine Fox News promoting this leftist hate line? Anybody who disagrees with homosexuality or gender confusion is a hate monger, and yet that's Megyn Kelly, rising star at Fox News.
One other thing, Peter, before I let you go, talk about San Antonio just for a second. Again, the warning signs we ought to be reading from what's going on there.
Yeah, Brian, you hit the nail on the head when you said it. It's a zero-sum game, and that's a lesbian activist, Kai Feldman, who first said that. Zero-sum game between gay rights and religious freedom. Here we see it in San Antonio, where they even ratcheted up a notion they're going to punish people for being Christians in the future. I mean, what the left is doing is they're saying that homosexuality, so-called gay orientation, is a fundamental right. They go back and say it's constitutional. Now, that's curious to me because I believe every colony had an anti-sodomy statute. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, homosexuality is a constitutional value, but you were absolutely right. Everywhere we see gay rights progressing, homosexual power progressing, we see religious freedom in retreat, and we just saw it in New Mexico with the Christian photographers who actually lost in a unanimous decision in the New Mexico Supreme Court. From now on, unless this is overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court, photographers in New Mexico will be forced, even if they're Christians, to take pictures at a homosexual so-called wedding.
And it sort of gives the lie to the whole idea that the homosexual lobby is all about live and let live. They are not about live and let live. They are about you let us live the way we want, and we will punish you if you believe or think any differently than we do. It's very coercive, totalitarian. There's no tolerance. There's no live and let live. And in San Antonio, that new ordinance, if you have ever demonstrated what they call bias, they don't define bias, but so that's up to in the eyes of the beholder. If you've ever demonstrated bias in word or deed, you cannot even serve on any kind of a board or commission in the city of San Antonio. You can't serve on the San Antonio City Council. In essence, Christians would be barred from ever serving in public life.
Absolutely, and this is what we're seeing all over the place, and it's scary to me that it looks like Justice Anthony Kennedy, who's already the hero for the homosexual lobby, some of these cases are going to end up in his hands, and he could go down as the enemy of freedom if this continues. And let's face it, we've already lost our freedom. Americans, through the Colorado case, that was Romer v. Evans, I think a decade ago, they lost the freedom to construct legislation which would ban these so-called sexual orientation laws. And so we've already lost our freedom to engage politically. Now they're going right at our freedom even to speak.
Our guest has been Peter LaBarbera. He is the head of Americans for the Truth About Homosexuality. Peter, thanks as always for taking time to be with us. Always very informative and instructive. God bless you, my friend.
And thanks for all you're doing, Brian. God bless.
Peter LaBarbera, Americans for the Truth About Homosexuality, AFTAH.com or .org. You can find it very easily on the web. Let's grab a couple of phone calls before we end the first hour. Let's go to Mary in Houston, Texas. Mary, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Yes, Brian, I wanted to comment, and thank you so much. Your program is one of my very favorite on AFR. I just admire you so much, and I'm so grateful I'm able to tune in.
Great. Well, thank you for listening, and thank you for your kind words.
What I wanted to comment on is I do believe, I happen to be Catholic, but my fellow Protestants so admire greatly. But I do believe we're living in the end times, and just a few things I think that you can look at is the spying on the Internet by our government, the large capability that the equipment has to do this, our phones, our Internet. Also, being the persecution of Christians worldwide, I pray every day, especially even Americans, because it happened to me in 2005. I was working for a builder, and my boss, we had 2 model homes, and I was assistant, and I'd take my Bible on my unpaid lunch hour and go to the other model that was not very heavily trafficked and read my Bible every day at lunch. And when my boss found out, she told me I could no longer bring my Bible and read it.
Wow.
And I took it to the gal who happened to be over the assistants in management, and she pulled for me, and I got to read my Bible once again. So it is happening, and that was a long time ago. Also, then you look at wars and rumors of wars, and the rise of radical Islam inside our own country even, and our president, which endorses it, I feel, which is very scary to me, and the control of our nation's health care. Basically, governments, against American people's wishes, is going to have the right to say who gets and who doesn't, who dies and who lives. And also gay rights, as the gentleman was talking about, being forced down our throats. I have nothing against, I mean, I don't agree with it, but it's wrong. And also, I just feel our president is encouraging a culture of death with abortions and just everything that's going on. Also, let's see.
Mary, let me ask you one quick question. I've only got about 30 seconds for this, but according to this poll, 73% of Roman Catholics believe that we are not living in the end times. You are a Catholic and believe that we are.
Oh, I do.
Do you have a suggestion for us as to why Catholics tend to be on the other end of the spectrum in terms of believing we're in the last days? I only got about 20 seconds.
No, I don't, but I claim Matthew 24 right there.
Yeah, all right.
Where it just states it plainly, and I've read that many years, and I've been looking at it happen more and more frequently.
All right, Mary, well, listen, I'm sorry I got to cut you off. I'm at the end of the hour, got a hard break coming up. I got to let you go, but I appreciate very much your observations, your phone calls, Mary, and thank you for listening. Well, that's it for the first hour of this Tuesday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk. Be right back after the news. Don't go anywhere. You are listening to Focal Point on the American Family Radio Talk Network.